My daughter pushed my wheelchair off the dock and into the lake, and when the cold water closed over my head, I heard her scream, "Dad, I'm so sorry. It was an accident." Only a week earlier, I had changed my will so that instead of everything going to her, my estate would be divided into 5 equal parts. As I fought for air and realized her accident was anything but, one thought flashed through my mind. What should I do with the time I had left? Forgive her, or destroy her plans completely? If you think a child turning on their own father for money is the worst part, you're wrong. Read to the end, and then tell me honestly, in my place, would you have shown mercy or done exactly what I did? My name is Daniel Moore. I am 72 years old, a retired civil engineer, a widower of 10 years, and a grandfather of 3. I spent 45 years designing bridges and roads across the Midwest, saving every spare dollar so that my family would never have to worry the way my parents did. 2 heart attacks and a stroke left me in a wheelchair most days, living in the lakeside house my late wife, Susan, loved. My only daughter, Emily, is 38, and for most of my life I believed she was the one person I could trust above anyone else. I was wrong, and that mistake nearly killed me. It started the way these things usually do. Not with one big betrayal, but with small, uncomfortable moments that I brushed off because I loved her. When Susan died, the world went gray. I was 62 then, Emily was 28, just married to a charming young accountant named Tyler. At the funeral, Emily held my hand so tightly her knuckles turned white, and she whispered, "I'll take care of you now, Daddy. I promise." For a few years, she kept that promise. She came by every weekend. She brought the grandkids, Chloe and Noah, to fish off the dock and roast marshmallows. She stocked my fridge, reminded me about my medications, drove me to the cardiologist when I got too dizzy to trust myself behind the wheel. I rewrote my will after Susan's death. It was simple then. Everything, the house, the investments, the life insurance, would go to Emily. My son David, from my first marriage, had drifted away years before after a bitter argument over his choice of career and some hard words we both regretted. He moved to Seattle, and for a long time didn't look back. At the time, it felt logical. Emily was here. Emily cared. Emily would take care of me. At least, that's what I believed. The first crack appeared at my 68th birthday dinner. We were sitting around my dining table, me at the head, Emily and the kids on one side, Tyler on the other. "Dad," Tyler said casually, cutting into the steak Emily had overcooked, "have you ever thought about simplifying your finances, consolidating everything so Emily doesn't have to deal with a mess later?" I took a sip of water. "What kind of simplifying?" He shrugged. "Power of attorney, joint accounts, that sort of thing. You're healthy now, but, planning ahead is smart." Emily shot him a glare. "Tyler," she hissed, but there was no real heat in it, more like a performance. I laughed it off. "I already have a will. Everything goes to you, sweetheart. It's not complicated." Tyler smiled, but there was something in his eyes I didn't like. "Of course. Just thinking it'd be nice if you let us help. Less stress for you." I changed the subject. But that night, alone in my chair, I heard Susan's voice in the back of my mind. "You always double-check the foundations, Danny. Why don't you double-check this?" I ignored it. That was my second mistake. Over the next 2 years, Emily's visits changed. She still came, but they felt less like family time and more like inspections. She opened my mail without asking. She tutted over my outdated filing system. She clicked her tongue when she saw balances that, according to Tyler, were just sitting there not doing anything. "Dad, inflation is eating this alive," she'd say, shaking a statement. "You could invest more aggressively. Tyler knows all about it. He manages portfolios at his firm." Tyler would nod, wearing that patient, professional smile he must have practiced in the mirror. "Emily," I would reply, "I'm not looking to get rich. I just want to know the money will be there if I need more care later. That's all. She would sigh, as if I were a stubborn child, and drop the subject. For the moment. Then came the stroke. It was a Tuesday morning. I was pouring coffee when the mug slipped from my hand and shattered on the floor. The right side of my body went numb, and the kitchen tilted. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed, unable to move my right leg, my arm heavy and useless. Emily was at my side, eyes red from crying. "Dad," she whispered, squeezing my left hand. "It's okay. I'm here. I'll take care of everything." For a while she did. She arranged the therapists, argued with the insurance company, brought me clean clothes, organized the kids' visits. I was grateful. I told her so. If she asked me to sign something, I signed. My vision blurred easily. My head hurt. The nurses were in and out. I trusted my daughter. One night, though, I woke up thirsty. The curtain around my bed was half drawn. I heard Emily's voice in the hallway. "I know, but the sooner we have control, the easier it'll be when he declines again," she was saying. Tyler's low reply. "We just need the durable power of attorney and access to the brokerage accounts. The will already leaves everything to you. It's just a matter of time, Em." A pause. Then Emily's voice, sharp. "He's taking forever to die, Tyler. You told me after the first heart attack he was on borrowed time. It's been 4 years. We can't keep putting our lives on hold." The words sliced through me. I stayed perfectly still, eyes closed, heart pounding against the monitor leads. Tyler said something I didn't catch, then Emily again. "Fine. I'll get the signatures. He never reads anything I put in front of him anyway." Footsteps approached. I closed my eyes fully and relaxed my face into what I hoped looked like sleep. Seconds later, the curtain swished open. "Dad?" Emily's voice was soft, fake gentle. "You awake?" I didn't move. She sighed, then the rustle of paper, the click of a pen. "We'll talk tomorrow. You just rest." When they left, I stared at the ceiling until morning. The next day, she appeared with a neat stack of documents and that same practiced smile. "Just hospital forms, Dad. Insurance, release stuff, you know how it is." My right hand wasn't working. She placed the pen in my left. I hesitated. The letters on the pages blurred, a swarm of black lines. My brain, foggy from medication, tried to make sense of the headings: durable power of attorney, beneficiary designation change, transfer on death. Susan's voice again. "Double-check the foundations." "I'm tired," I said, forcing the pen down. "Leave them. I'll look tomorrow." For a split second, annoyance flashed across Emily's face before she smoothed it away. "Of course, Dad. No rush." But there was rush, apparently. 2 days later, she brought up the documents again. Then again. Then Tyler visited just to explain a few things, his tone patient and patronizing. I played the slow, grateful patient. I let them think I was weaker than I was. I signed the hospital forms, but nothing else. And as soon as I was discharged, I called someone I should have called years before, my old friend and attorney, Mark Ellison. Mark and I had gone to high school together. He'd helped me set up my first will when Susan and I were in our 30s and barely had more than a starter home and a savings account. Over the years, we'd drifted a bit, the way people do, but we'd never completely lost touch. When he saw me roll into his office in the wheelchair, he came around the desk and hugged me. "Danny," he said, stepping back to study my face, "you look like hell." "I feel like a bridge that's been hit by a truck and patched up with duct tape," I replied. "But that's not why I'm here." I told him everything. The stroke, the overheard conversation, the documents they kept trying to push under my pen, the will that left everything to Emily. Mark's jaw tightened as he listened. "Do you have any reason to believe your daughter would actually harm you?" he asked finally. I hesitated. I'd have said no before. But now, I heard my child complain that I'm taking too long to die. I want to pretend I misunderstood Mark. I can't. He folded his hands. You worked for decades to build this, Dan. You have the right to decide how it's used and how you're protected. We can change the will. We can revoke any powers of attorney you might have signed, and we can add some protections. What kind of protections? He explained in simple terms the idea of a no-contest clause, provisions that disinherited any beneficiary who tried to challenge the will or who could be proven to have harmed me or attempted to coerce me. We talked about trusts, about appointing a professional fiduciary instead of a family member. We talked about David. I haven't spoken to my son in 8 years, I said quietly. Last time we talked, I told him he was throwing his life away freelancing instead of getting a real engineering job. We both said things we shouldn't have. He stopped calling. I didn't chase him. Mark shrugged. You can leave money to him without forgiving him, or you can forgive him and leave nothing. But you should decide that yourself, not under anyone's pressure. I went home that evening with my head spinning and a thick folder of drafts on my lap. For the first time in a long time, I didn't tell Emily where I had been. Over the next month, with Mark's help, I completely rebuilt the foundation of my estate. Instead of everything going to Emily, my wealth, roughly $4.7 million in retirement funds, investments, and the lake house that had appreciated more than I'd realized, would be divided into 5 equal parts. 1 part to Emily, 1 to David, 1 split into college trusts for the grandkids, 1 to a scholarship fund. Susan and I had always talked about starting for engineering students from low-income families, and 1 to a charitable trust for the local hospital's cardiac ward. We added the no-contest clause. Then we added something else, a provision that any willful attempt to hasten my death or cause me harm by a beneficiary would result in that person's complete disinheritance, their share redistributed among the others. Mark raised an eyebrow. You're expecting trouble? I hope I'm being paranoid, I said. But if I'm not, I want the ground under her feet to be less solid than she thinks. When everything was drafted, signed, and notarized, I felt a strange mix of relief and grief. I had just legally admitted I did not fully trust my only daughter. That is not a small thing. I told her about the change because I'm not a cruel man by nature. I believed, foolishly, that she might understand. We were on the back deck. The evening sun painted the lake in shades of copper. Emily was scrolling on her phone while the kids squabbled over a fishing rod at the end of the dock. Emily, I said, I went to see Mark Ellison last month. She looked up sharply. About what? My will. I made some changes. Her face relaxed into a smile. Oh, good. Tyler will be relieved. I took a breath. I decided it was fairer to divide things up. The estate will now be split into 5 equal portions. You, your brother, the grandkids' college funds, the scholarship, and the hospital. The smile froze. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. 5 equal portions, she repeated. That's right. So, I go from everything to 1/5? That's one way to see it, I said quietly. Another way is, you still receive more money than most people see in their lifetimes, and the rest does some good in the world. Her jaw clenched. Did Tyler put you up to this? Or David? Neither. This was my decision. She laughed, a hard, brittle sound I barely recognized. My whole life I've taken care of you. I stayed close. I brought the kids. I gave up job opportunities so I could be here when you needed me. David ran off to do his own thing and ignored you for years. And he gets the same as me? That's enough, I said. I won't have you rewriting history to fit what you want. You didn't give up your life for me. You chose to live nearby. And you haven't exactly been shy about accepting help in return. Her eyes glittered. You're punishing me for wanting security. I'm making sure everyone is treated fairly, including you. She stared at me a long moment, then stood abruptly. The kids are tired. We're going home. Em, at least stay for dinner. No. Her voice shook. Enjoy your 5-way generosity, Dad. She marched down the dock, grabbing Noah's shoulder and snapping at Chloe to put the fishing gear away, right now. Tyler, who'd been on a work call near the driveway, glanced toward us, confusion crossing his face as he saw her expression. They left without another word. For the next 2 weeks, I barely heard from her. Short, clipped text messages replaced her usual visits. Busy, Dad. Work's crazy. We'll call later. Later never came. I told myself she just needed time to cool off. I tried not to notice how quiet the house was. Then she called one Friday morning and suggested the picnic. Let's go to the lake, she said, voice bright in a way that felt forced. You've been cooped up too long. We'll take the kids, make a day of it. I'll bring lunch. I hesitated. Are we all right, Emily? A pause. Then a sigh. Dad, I overreacted. Of course we're all right. You're my father. I'm sorry I took the Will stuff so hard. I've just been stressed with work and the kids. Please, let's just have a nice day, okay? I wanted to believe her. I wanted my daughter back, not the sharp stranger who'd glared at me on the deck. Okay, I said. A nice day at the lake. The irony still makes me sick. It was one of those perfect early summer days that seemed designed to lull you into forgetting anything bad could ever happen. The sky was a clean blue. The water was calm. Noah and Chloe ran ahead with a cooler, shouting about who would catch the biggest fish. Tyler said he had a work meeting and couldn't join us. I remember being secretly relieved. Emily was all smiles again, fussing over the blanket and the sandwiches, laughing when the kids got mustard on their shirts. For a while I let myself relax. Around mid-afternoon, Chloe and Noah wandered down the shoreline, chasing minnows in the shallows. Emily turned to me, her expression suddenly serious. Dad, want to go out on the dock for some air? She asked. I glanced at my wheelchair. Since the stroke, I'd regained some partial strength in my right leg, but not enough to walk safely. The chair had become an extension of me. The dock, with its narrow boards and gentle sway, made me nervous. I'm not sure that's a good idea, I said. The wheels could catch. I'll hold you, she replied quickly. I'll lock the wheels. You'll be fine. Come on, you always love sitting out there with Mom. The mention of Susan tugged at my heart. All right, I said reluctantly. Emily wheeled me down the path. The boards creaked as we rolled onto the dock. A few yards out, she stopped. Here, she said. Let me turn you so you can see the view. She spun the chair gently. The lake spread before me, sunlight sparkling on the surface. For a moment, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Susan laughing as she tried to teach Emily to swim, David sulking about wearing a life jacket, the smell of sunscreen and charcoal. Then I felt it. 2 hands on the back of the chair. The tiniest pause. Pressure. The wheelchair jolted forward. Emily? I grabbed the armrests. The front wheels hit the gap between 2 boards. For a fraction of a second, I thought they would catch. Instead, they bounced over the edge. The world tilted. I remember the sky flipping upside down, the dock rushing out of view, the terrible weightlessness in my stomach. Then the impact. The cold hit like a fist, driving the air from my lungs. Water closed over my head. The wheelchair dragged me down, metal and dead weight. I tried to kick, but my right leg responded sluggishly, the muscles weak and uncoordinated. My left leg flailed, useless without its partner. The straps on the footrests held my feet in place, anchoring me to the sinking chair. Above, the water surface shimmered, teasingly close and impossibly far. My chest burned. Panic roared in my ears. Was it an accident? Did she trip? Did the wheel catch? Those questions flickered through my mind even as I fought for my life. But under them lay something colder, the memory of her voice outside my hospital room, saying I was taking too long to die. My hands scrabbled at the buckles on the lap belt. My fingers, clumsy with cold and fear, slipped once, twice. The chair sank another foot. Darkness crept at the edges of my vision. Then, miraculously, the buckle clicked. The belt snapped free. I pushed away from the chair, lungs screaming. My right leg, weak but not dead, spasmed in something like a kick. My left leg followed, more out of habit than strength. Inch by inch, I clawed toward the shimmer of light. Just when I thought I couldn't hold my breath another second, my head broke the surface. I gulped air and choked, coughing up lake water. The dock loomed a few feet away. Emily was on her knees, hands to her mouth, eyes wide. "Dad!" she screamed. "Oh my God, Dad, I'm so sorry. The chair it slipped. Hold on." Her words echoed over the water, frantic and shrill. I grabbed the edge of the dock, my fingers digging into the rough wood. My body felt heavy, my right leg all but useless, but adrenaline lent me strength. I clung there, gasping, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. For a brief, insane second, I considered letting go. Just letting the water close over me, ending it all and leaving her to live with what she'd done. But something in me refused. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was Susan, somewhere, whispering that I was not allowed to leave our grandchildren alone with a woman who could push her own father into a lake. "Help!" I rasped. Emily scrambled forward, lying flat on the dock and reaching for my arms. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed my wrist. "I've got you," she sobbed. "I've got you, I swear. It was an accident, Dad. It just happened." As she pulled, I met her eyes. In that moment, I saw past the tears and panic to something else. A flash of calculation, of horror not only at what had almost happened, but at what it might mean if anyone believed it wasn't an accident. She dragged me onto the dock, my clothes heavy and dripping. I lay there coughing and shivering, the sky spinning above me. "Dad, I'm so sorry," she kept repeating. "I didn't see the gap, I swear. I didn't think. Chloe's voice cut through the chaos. "Mom? Grandpa?" She and Noah were running back toward us, eyes wide. Emily wiped her face quickly, smearing the tears. "Grandpa slipped," she called, forcing a shaky laugh. "He scared me half to death, didn't you, Dad?" Both kids stared at me. Noah looked frightened. Chloe looked skeptical. "You okay, Grandpa?" she asked, kneeling beside me. I managed a nod. "Just wet," I croaked. "Nothing broken." The paramedics at the small lakeside clinic checked my vitals, listened to my lungs, and declared me fortunate. "Another minute under and you'd have been in real trouble," one of them said. "Must have been terrifying." "It was awful," Emily said quickly. "The chair just rolled. I feel so guilty." She squeezed my hand, hard enough to hurt, as if daring me to contradict her. I didn't. Not yet. On the drive home, Chloe sat beside me in the back while Emily drove, white-knuckled, and Noah dozed. Halfway down the highway, Chloe leaned in close. "Grandpa," she whispered, "I saw Mom's hands. She pushed." My blood ran cold. "Chloe," I said carefully, "that's a serious thing to say." "I know what I saw," she answered, her small jaw set with a stubbornness that reminded me painfully of Susan. "I won't tell Noah. He'll get scared, but are you safe?" I looked at her, my 12-year-old granddaughter, voice shaking, trying to be brave. Something in me hardened into steel. "Yes," I said quietly. "I will be." Because in that moment, I understood that surviving Emily's push into the lake wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning. And what I did 2 weeks later, when I stood up from that wheelchair in front of my daughter and crossed her name out of my will while she watched, made her scream loud enough for the neighbors to come running. Would you have done the same or walked away? In the days after the accident, Emily was attentive, too attentive. She called every morning and every night. She insisted on coming over to make sure you're all right. She hovered when I showered, when I moved from bed to chair, when I went to the kitchen. At first I thought it was guilt. Then, one afternoon, she stepped outside to take a call, leaving her phone on the arm of my chair. It buzzed with a text preview before the screen locked. Tyler. Did it work? My fingers tightened around the armrest. I stared at the message until the screen went black. When Emily came back in, her eyes flicked to her phone. She grabbed it quickly, but not quickly enough to hide the fear that flashed across her face when she saw it in my line of sight. "Who was that?" I asked. "Work," she said too fast. "Nothing important." I said nothing. Inside, something old and fierce woke up. The same part of me that had negotiated contracts with cutthroat developers, that had refused to take bribes from corrupt officials, that had walked off job sites when safety was compromised. I was tired. My heart was fragile. My right leg still dragged. But I was not a helpless old man waiting to be pushed into a grave. That night, I called Mark again. "I need to make another change," I said, "and I need you to help me plan a performance." We met the next morning in his office. I told him everything. The text, Chloe's whispered confession, the way Emily had pushed the wheelchair. My voice shook a few times. Mark listened without interrupting, his mouth a tight line. "Dan," he said when I finished, "we could go to the police. Attempted homicide is no small thing." "Do I have evidence? Enough to stand up in court?" He hesitated. "A text that could be interpreted multiple ways. A frightened 12-year-old's testimony. Your own memory under stress. It's something, but it's not a smoking gun," I said. "And if I fail, I lose my daughter in every possible way, and my grandchildren get stuck in the middle." "They're already in the middle," he said softly. I closed my eyes. "I know. That's why I want to hit her where it will hurt her most. The one thing she cares about more than anything else. The money." We amended the will again. Emily's 1/5 vanished. Her would-be share was redistributed. An extra portion to David, an increased fund for the grandkids, more to the scholarship and the hospital. We left a minimal bequest for Emily, an old piano that had belonged to Susan's mother, and a framed family photo from before things went wrong. Enough that the no contest clause still applied if she tried to challenge. Nothing that would change her life. "Are you sure?" Mark asked, pen hovering over the page. "I am," I said. "If she ever comes to me out of genuine remorse, not because she wants my money, I can help her in other ways. But I will not fund the life of someone who tried to kill me." We also prepared a codicil, a short final amendment I could sign in front of witnesses, dramatically if I wished, should the chance arise. It would emphasize, in simple words, that I was of sound mind and was intentionally excluding my daughter because of actions that endangered my life. I left Mark's office with the codicil tucked in a plain envelope in my bag, my heart pounding. The second part of the plan required something harder than signing papers. It required standing up. Physical therapy is slow, humiliating work. Since the stroke, I'd been doing the bare minimum, just enough to shuffle a few steps with a walker when nobody was watching. The lake incident changed that. I called my therapist, Janine, and asked for more sessions. Private ones, at home, early in the morning before anyone might drop by unannounced. "You're pushing yourself," she warned as I grimaced, sweat dripping down my face while I tried to coax my right foot into lifting instead of dragging. "I'm being pushed," I replied, "and I intend to push back." She gave me a long look, then nodded. "Okay, Mr. Moore, then let's get you ready." Every day we worked. Every day I cursed my weak leg, my trembling hands, my shortness of breath. Every day I heard Chloe's whisper in my ear, "Are you safe?" Slowly, inches at a time, steps returned. They were wobbly, ugly, nothing like the easy stride I'd had as a younger man, but they were mine. I still needed the wheelchair for distance, but I could stand, take a few careful steps, pivot. I did not tell Emily. 2 weeks after the lake, she called with a strange request. "Dad, we need to talk about the will again. she said. "I've been thinking, and I overreacted. Maybe we can adjust things so it's fair for everyone and not extreme." Something in her tone set my teeth on edge. Too smooth, too rehearsed. "Have you talked to Mark?" I asked. "Yes," she said after the briefest pause. "He mentioned the changes. I want to talk face to face. Maybe we can find a compromise." For Mark to talk to her, she would have had to call him and present herself as the concerned daughter. I trusted him not to reveal details without my permission, but he couldn't exactly pretend he hadn't redrafted anything. "I'm willing to talk," I said. "Come by the house on Saturday. I'll invite Mark too. That way we can all be on the same page." Silence. Then, reluctantly, "All right, Saturday." I called Mark as soon as we hung up. "She wants a compromise," I said. "She wants everything back," he replied dryly. "Or at least enough to feel she's still the primary heir. Are you sure you're up for a confrontation?" I looked down at my hand, flexing my fingers, then at my legs. "I'm ready." Saturday arrived bright and clear. I woke before dawn, nerves buzzing. I dressed carefully, pressed slacks, a button-down shirt, the old wristwatch Susan had given me for our 30th anniversary. I wheeled myself into the living room, where Mark sat with a folder on his lap. On the coffee table in front of him lay the will, the trust documents, and the unsigned codicil in its envelope. "Remember," Mark said, "you don't have to do anything dramatic. We can simply tell her the changes are final." "I know," I replied. "But if she wants theater, I'll give it to her." At 10 sharp, Emily's SUV pulled into the driveway. She came in without knocking, her perfume preceding her. "Dad," she said, kissing my cheek. "Mark?" "Emily," Mark replied politely. She sat on the couch across from us, smoothing her skirt. Her eyes went straight to the papers. "So," she said, "I've had time to think. I understand you want to give to charity and all that. Mom used to talk about scholarships. I get it, but I think it's unreasonable that David, who abandoned you, gets as much as I do when I've been the one here, taking care of you." "Have you heard from David lately?" I asked. Her lips thinned. "No, but that's not the point." "It is the point," I said. "You speak as though you've been single-handedly propping me up for years. But these last few months, Emily, you weren't here out of pure love. You were here to manage an investment. Me." Her face flushed. "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" She looked at Mark. "Can you explain to him how this feels from my side? If he cuts my share down this much, Tyler and I will struggle. We've built our lives around the expectation that—" She cut herself off too late. "Built your lives around my death," I said quietly. "Say it, Emily. Around the expectation that when I died, a few $1,000,000 would fall into your lap, and you'd never have to worry again." "I didn't mean it like that," she snapped. "I just planned, like you taught me. You always said to plan ahead." "I said to plan ahead by working hard and living within your means," I replied. "Not by counting down the days until I stop breathing." She surged to her feet, eyes bright with unshed tears. "You're twisting everything. This all started when you got paranoid. You're forgetting how much I've done for you. I was there after Mom died. I drove you to your appointments. I babysat you after your stroke. I'm your daughter, Dad. I deserve more than some son who vanished and a bunch of strangers in a hospital." I held her gaze. "Do you know what you deserve?" She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "You deserve exactly what every other beneficiary gets. No more, no less, if you behave like family. And if you behave like a vulture, circling and waiting, you deserve nothing from me." "Nothing?" Her voice cracked on the word. Mark shifted in his seat. "Emily," he said gently, "your father is of sound mind, and he has the legal right to dispose of his estate however he sees fit. The will is valid as it stands. She turned on him. You're supposed to be on my side. I'll find another lawyer. You're welcome to, he said. It won't change the documents your father already signed. Any competent attorney will tell you the same. She began pacing, hands fluttering. This is insane. You're letting David win. You're giving strangers what should be mine. After everything I've done, after you pushed me into a lake, I said. She froze. The room went utterly still. Her back was to me. I watched her shoulders stiffen. Slowly she turned. What did you say? I said, I repeated, after you pushed me into a lake. Her mouth opened and closed. It was an accident. Tyler's text message asking if it worked suggests otherwise, I said. So does your daughter, by the way. Chloe saw your hands. For a heartbeat, raw panic flashed across her face. Then the mask slammed down. You're confused, she said. You nearly drowned. You're imagining things. I'm old, Emily, I said. Not blind and not stupid. She sank back onto the couch, shaking her head. So that's it? That's the story you're going to tell yourself? That your own daughter tried to kill you? You did, I said, my voice steady. If I hadn't managed to unbuckle that belt, I would be at the bottom of the lake right now. And you would be crying at my funeral and telling everyone how much you loved me. Her eyes filled with tears. Dad, please, she whispered. You're my father. I was scared. The chair moved faster than I expected. I panicked. Yes, I've been frustrated. Yes, we talked about money, but I would never— Stop, I said. She did. I took a breath, felt Janine's drills in my muscles, the memory of dragging my right foot forward, the burn in my thigh. Mark, I said, hand me the folder. He passed it across. My hands trembled, but not from weakness. I set the will and the codicil on the table. Emily, I said, come here. Wary, she stood and moved closer. What are you doing? I pushed my hands against the armrests. My right leg wobbled, then straightened. My left leg followed. The room tilted, then steadied as I slowly rose from the chair. Emily's eyes widened. Dad? My heart hammered, but I stood. For the first time in front of her since the stroke, I stood. I thought you couldn't, she began. You thought a lot of things, I said. You thought I wouldn't question the forms you shoved under my pin. You thought I wouldn't hear your conversations outside my hospital room. You thought I wouldn't feel your hands on that chair when you pushed. And you thought I would die before I ever had the chance to do this. I picked up the pen from the table. The codicil lay open, the blank line waiting. With deliberate slowness, I took the will, turned to the page listing the beneficiaries, and held it up where she could see. Her name, Emily Moore Carter, sat printed under Residuary Beneficiaries, prior version. In the amended one, her share had already been removed, but the codicil referenced her explicitly. Watch closely, I said. I stepped around the coffee table, not gracefully, but steadily. Emily stood rooted to the spot, eyes riveted to my legs as much as to the paper. In front of her, I laid the will flat and drew a heavy line through her name on the old section. Then I signed the codicil, the pen scratching across the paper with a final, irreversible sound. Mark stepped forward and added his signature as witness, his expression grim. "What are you doing?" Emily whispered. "Dad, don't. You're angry. You're confused. We can fix this. We can go back to how it was. You can rewrite—" "I am not confused," I said. "I am more clear-headed than I've been in years." Her composure shattered. "You can't cut me out. You can't. After everything I've done, everything I've planned. You nearly killed me," I said. "You lied to my face. You built your life not on love, but on the expectation of my death paying your bills. I will not reward that." She took a step toward me, hands outstretched as if she could physically stop the ink from drying. "Please," she begged, voice breaking. "Please, Dad. Tyler was the one who talked about money so much. I went along. I lost control for a second on the dock. I didn't mean—" "If you had come to me after the lake," I said softly, "and told me the truth. If you had said, 'Dad, I am ashamed of what I did. I am sickened by how I've been thinking. Please forgive me. Help me be better.' Maybe we could have found a path back." Tears streamed down her face. "I am saying that now." "No," I replied. "You are saying it because you just watched me cross your name out of my will." Silence fell like a curtain. Her sobs quieted, replaced by a harsh, ragged breathing. "You're choosing David over me," she said finally, her voice cold. "The son who abandoned you." "I am choosing not to be murdered for money," I replied. "David and I have our history. We both have things to apologize for. But he never tried to end my life. You did." She stared at me, something ugly swirling in her eyes. "You'll die alone," she whispered. "You realize that? David lives across the country. The hospital doesn't care about you. The scholarship kids won't know your name. You'll sit in this house and rot." I felt the words like a slap, but I did not let them land fully. "I have lived alone since your mother died," I said. "I know what it is. What I didn't know until now was what it felt like to have your own child look at you and see a price tag instead of a person." Mark cleared his throat. "Emily, I think it's best if you leave now. Your father has made his decision. Any further discussion should go through another attorney if you choose to hire one." She looked at him, then at me. For a moment I thought she might lunge, tear the papers, do something reckless. Instead, she drew herself up, wiped her cheeks with sharp movements, and walked to the door. "You'll regret this," she said, not turning around. "When you're old and sick and need someone to drive you to the doctor, remember who you pushed away." "I'll remember who pushed me into a lake," I answered. The door slammed behind her. The quiet that followed was immense. My legs trembled. I sank back into the wheelchair, muscles shaking. Mark exhaled slowly. "That," he said, "was one of the most brutal things I've ever witnessed." I stared at the papers on the table. My signature glistened slightly, the ink not quite dry. "Did I do the right thing?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "You protected yourself, and you sent a message that may be the only one she understands." In the weeks that followed, the fallout was exactly as explosive as you might imagine. Emily called. She left voicemails that swung wildly from tearful pleading to furious ranting. When I didn't answer, she switched to texts, then to emails. Some were long letters reminding me of birthday parties and hospital visits, demanding I remember everything she had sacrificed. Others were single sentences, sharp as knives. How could you choose them over your own blood? Tyler sent me a carefully worded email suggesting the will might be a product of undue influence by Mark and warning that legal action might be necessary to ensure fairness. Mark responded on my behalf with 3 lines citing the no contest clause and enclosing a copy. After that, Tyler went silent. Chloe came by on her bike one afternoon alone. "Mom said not to bother you," she said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "She said you don't want to see us anymore." My heart twisted. "That's not true," I said, my voice thick. "You are always welcome here, Chloe. You and Noah." She looked at me, eyes suspiciously bright. "Are you really not giving Mom any money?" "I'm giving her something more important," I replied. "A chance to learn that people matter more than what they leave behind." "She doesn't see it that way," Chloe said quietly. "I know." She stepped inside and hugged me, a quick, hard squeeze that nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. "Thank you for not dying," she whispered into my shoulder. I laughed, the sound breaking halfway into a sob. "I'm happy about that, too." Later, when she sat at the kitchen table doing homework, she looked up and asked, "Are you scared of being alone?" I thought about it. About the empty evenings, the quiet mornings, the way the house echoed. A little, I admitted. But I'm more scared of living surrounded by people who are waiting for me to disappear. That's a different kind of alone. And it's worse. A month after the confrontation, I received a letter postmarked Seattle. No return address, just familiar handwriting on the front. Dad, Chloe reached out to me on social media. She told me some of what happened. I'm not proud of the fact that I had to hear about your near drowning from my niece instead of from you. But I'm more ashamed of how many years I chose not to call you at all. I was angry for a long time. You know why. But I also know I gave up on trying as soon as things got hard between us. Mom wouldn't be proud of that. I'm not writing because of money. I don't know what's in your will, and I don't want to. I'm writing because I heard that when you almost died, the person who was supposed to care for you saw it as an opportunity. That made me think about what I would regret if you were really gone. If you're willing, I'd like to call. Maybe visit. Not to fix everything overnight. Just to start. Your son, David. I read the letter 3 times. Then I picked up the phone and dialed the number Chloe had scribbled in the margin. Dad? David's voice was older, rougher than I remembered, but beneath it I heard the boy who used to build model bridges at the kitchen table while I checked his math. Yeah, I said, swallowing hard. It's me. We talked for 2 hours. We did not solve everything, but we began to lay new foundations over the cracked ones. As for Emily, she kept her distance physically, but I heard about her. She and Tyler sold their overpriced house and moved into a smaller place. Without the expectation of my money, they had to live on what they actually earned. From Chloe's guarded updates, I gathered that they were struggling, snapping at each other more, blaming the world, and me, for every setback. The lake incident never went to the police. I had made my choice. Financial justice instead of criminal prosecution. Some nights I lay awake and wondered if I had been too lenient. Other nights I wondered if I had been too harsh. Then I would remember the cold water closing over my head, the weight of the chair dragging me down, the sound of my daughter's laughter on the deck when she thought money would flow endlessly from my accounts to her life. And I would remember the feeling of my legs holding me up, trembling but firm, as I stood in front of her and drew a line through her name. Now, months later, the wheelchair is still part of my life, but not my prison. I can walk from the bedroom to the kitchen with the help of a cane. I can stand at the window and watch the sun set over the lake without being pushed. Sometimes, on particularly clear evenings, I roll down to the dock alone. I lock the wheels far back from the edge, sit there, and listen to the water. I think about Susan, about the family we tried to build, about the daughter I loved, and the woman she chose to become. I wonder if one day she will knock on my door not for signatures or money, but for a conversation. I don't know yet what I will say if that day comes. What I do know is this. I am no longer living under the illusion that love and greed can coexist without poisoning each other. So that is what happened. My daughter accidentally pushed me into a lake in a wheelchair after I changed my will, and I survived. Then I climbed out of that chair, literally and figuratively, and took everything she was waiting for right out of her hands, in front of her eyes. Tell me honestly, was I right to cut my own daughter out of my will and let her live with the consequences of what she tried to do, or did I go too far? What would you have done in my place?
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.